Well, we were disappointed to hear that news, but interestingly, that news didn't come from an LSU press release. The news came from a press release from Dr. Ghali. So we, of course, question many of the statements that have been made, and specifically statements that were made in the press release regarding the results of any investigation. Here's the deal. Don't you find it interesting that unlike the Hirsch-Blackwell investigation of the LSU football scandal, the alleged investigation into Dr. Ghali's conduct has not been made available to the public? If you don't find that interesting, I do. And we should all be demanding a copy of that investigation. I'm certainly going to send a public records request for the same. Because if the evidence I've collected and that have been provided to me by my 4 clients is accurate, and I believe it is, there's simply no way that any real investigation could have completely cleared LSU leadership of misconduct.
What has Dr. Ghali done that stands out to you as an egregious offense, that is the most egregious, I guess?
I think if you were going to say the most egregious, not talking about the specifics of my client's allegations, is that he hasn't really demanded excellence at the LSU Med School, and he's led with a leadership style of vice and vindictiveness and retaliatory conduct. If you look at the allegations of my specific clients, it's not conduct directly done towards them, although some has been in a discriminatory fashion, but it's conduct of them reporting discrimination claims and then being retaliated against for reporting it. LSU's leadership here has demonstrated that it cannot be trusted to take appropriate actions. The Board of Supervisors is going to have a meeting on Friday, and we're going to see on Friday if the Board of Supervisors is going to tacitly approve this mismanagement or if they're going to demand change. I believe and I hope that they will demand change and that Dr. Ghali will be removed as chancellor and a national search will be conducted for new leadership.
Now, you're filing a lawsuit, another injunction for Dr. Werner. Is that accurate?
That lawsuit was filed yesterday.
Okay.
Because, surprisingly, besides the LSU mismanagement with Dr. Ghali's situation, LSU has allowed the same people against whom Dr. Werner filed complaints to place Dr. Werner on administrative leave. And they've done so in violation of its rules and regulations and its bylaws. And so we filed a lawsuit to have that action declared a nullity. We have given LSU sufficient time to try to resolve this issue. They have failed to do so. And so we had to step up and we had to file a lawsuit.
Allison,
and go ahead.
This has been sent to me by a number of people, so I'm going to let you know that ahead of time. This is a quote from Dr. Werner. Quote, Dr. G.E. Ghali has always treated me fairly, been supportive of my endeavors, and encouraged me to advance within our specialty. He truly cares about our community, our program, and the residents he trains. She's obviously had a change of heart with regard to Dr. Ghali, correct?
Well, I think somebody would have to say, if you made that statement and then you're filing a lawsuit at this point, what has Dr. Ghali done to cause that change of heart? What conduct has occurred? In this case, the conduct that occurred was she reported complaints of discrimination, and she was immediately retaliated against because she had the bravery and the courage to report those complaints of discrimination, which is exactly what your leadership at LSU should be doing, protecting the students, protecting the staff, protecting all of the employees there against unlawful discrimination.
You've heard this, and I know I even hesitate to say this to you, but I'm going to because I know you'll understand. You've heard a lot of people say that, LSU is a mess right now, and they're using Dr. Ghali as one of the scapegoats to kind of keep the heat off of LSU in Baton Rouge. I would love to hear you respond to that.
Well, LSU is a mess right now, but it's not just a mess in its football program. With respect to the conduct that occurred in past coaches, it's not just a mess in other programs. It's a mess because of Dr. Ghali and his leadership of the med school and the climate that he's allowed to fester in that med school. And so I don't think there's a scapegoat. LSU's not driving this dispute. These are 4 local doctors from Shreveport who have filed these complaints. This isn't coming from Baton Rouge. In fact, Baton Rouge hasn't taken the appropriate actions, which is why we've had to file a lawsuit. to ask the courts to come in and take the appropriate action. So I don't find any merit to those type of statements because this is Shreveport driven. These complaints come from the Shreveport Med School.
The effort to get Dr. Werner back on staff that you filed yesterday, what's the timetable for that?
Well, we've asked for a preliminary injunction. That has to be set within, a certain number of days. We hope to get a hearing date set soon. If the issue is not resolved before then, we're prepared to put on our evidence and show that the conduct taken by LSU is an absolute nullity, and Dr. Werner should be allowed to return to work. It's very interesting to me. My 4 clients had the courage and the bravery to step up and publicly make their complaints. Dr. Werner has been placed on leave because of unnamed resident complaints. Who are these cowards? And what are those complaints? We have asked that information for a month now, and we have been given no information and no reason for this administrative leave. LSU took this action in violation of its rules and regulations, in violations of its bylaws. The action is a nullity, and Dr. Werner simply wants to return to work and provide the patient care that she can for patients who are nationwide seeking her services.
Is there anything that Dr. Ghali or the leaders at LSU Health could do to sit down and negotiate a settlement to all this where Dr. Ghali stays on the job, your clients stay on the job, and we come to a meeting of the minds of is there any way possible that could happen?
Well, I never say never, but I would say that's unlikely. I think that the leadership that Dr. Ghali has demonstrated at that med school is something that's irreparable at this point. I think that it's very unlikely. I think that if LSU can conduct a national search for a football coach, if LSU can conduct a national search for a new baseball coach, LSU can conduct a national search for a new chancellor.